right, Luka Nation. This is an episode I think is going to go in the record books in terms of views, comments, likes, shares. We have someone that I've respected in the hobby for quite some time. He's in the family business. He's growing the hobby pie. Everybody speaks about his shop in California, and they leave not only feeling good, but they feel like they had the card experience. So I wanted to have Rob Veras on the show for a long time. You guys know him as the Card Father, and pick his brain. Origin story. How was the first Burbank show? When's the second one coming? And his thoughts on kind of the Netflix documentary and kind of how that's going to impact the hobby. So we have a short amount of time. Strap in. I think this is going to be a legendary episode. And without further ado, welcome to the show, Mr. Cardfather.
Hey guys, pleasure to be here. Big fan. I know you guys' work. I just kind of love being on these types of things, and hopefully someone out there will get something out of it, and at the very least maybe be motivated and look at the hobby in a bit of a different light.
Shout out to Ryan, your son. We'll get into that very soon, but I love the origin story. It's probably been weeks since I've asked someone the origin story. How did you find yourself, running this shop in Southern California?
I mean, you got to go back in the way back machine with me. It goes back to 1979 when I used to frequent the stamp shop. And one day, since I was there all the time, he asked if I'd like to deliver flyers. And for someone getting like $2 a week in his allowance, it all seemed like righteous bucks. It was 1 cent per card, 2 cents per house. And did that for a little bit. And he asked if I wanted to work behind the counter. I'm 12 years old, and parents signed off on it, $1.50 an hour. And it was the best education I could have gotten, because there's nothing like it in school when you're dealing with adults. There's nothing like it when you're dealing in people's possessions and being able to work with them. And stayed there for about 10 years. And then in 1989, bought the business with the family. I was 22. And, for the last 33 years, it's just been the grind. It's daily. No shortcuts. And just seeing the business grow, seeing the ups and downs. People from the last 2 years haven't seen that. That's why I think that there's some knee-jerk reactions as to what's going on here. I've been through recessions. I've been through labor strikes. I've been through overproduction. I've been, where people just come in the business for the wrong reasons and jettison out when things aren't going their way and leave a wake of carnage. So I'm real fortunate in the position we're in today. It's our 4th retail location from the original one. And we've tried to build the store that I'd want to walk into. I don't think there's, any mystery there. If I'm a customer, on the other side of the counter, what I want to see. I want to see a spacious, well-lit store that's clean, that's friendly, that's organized, that buys things back from their customers, and provides an experience that goes way beyond just being transactional.
I compare it to the Hogwarts of the hobby. I always see the people coming and visiting and doing the picture in your warehouse. It reminded me of kind of Hogwarts for sports cards.
Yeah, that's kind of it. It's, people don't always understand that we have a warehouse too of singles. They come in the store, we attempt to blow their minds, and they'll spend 2 hours here. But the other part of our business, I think, is more impressive. When you look at the warehouse, the 2.5 million different cards on eBay, again, that's from the grind. I mean, that doesn't happen. It's a passion. And I'm just as big a card dork, today as I was as a 10-year-old getting my packs from the ice cream man. It really hasn't changed. And I think that's kind of unique in the business, to still be that guy that will go through triple shoes and get it all set up for my guys. I embrace the grind, and hats off to everybody else that does.
I want to ask you, so Fanatics is coming in a few years, right? We're going through a really interesting cycle where cards boomed, and now I personally feel, and I don't know if people agree or disagree, there's a bit of a liquidity crunch. It's much harder to sell cards. If you're selling them, you're taking a really big haircut. What would you want to see from the hobby in the next 2-3 years? And that might be for the hobby participants and also the hobby businesses.
From the hobby businesses, that's simple. We need to turn more sports fans into sports card collectors. And I think Fanatics is in a unique position there are many companies that could have come in and bought the licenses and bought the industry, basically billion-dollar hedge funds that were coming through. And we were talking with, I think Fanatics was the best possible situation if somebody was going to come in and do what they did. Because I think they have the opportunity to turn more sports cards fans into sports card collectors. We just need more users. We need the messaging. I don't think anybody can get that messaging out like Fanatics can. When was the last time you saw a commercial on live sports for cards? Never. When was the last time you saw one on ESPN? Never. There's so much opportunity, and a company like Fanatics that's got such a foothold in the sports space. I think that they have that opportunity. I think that's been missed by previous administrations, if you want to go there. I also want to make sure that companies that do provide liquidity, I think we don't need more influencers. We don't need more breakers. What I think we need is more backstops for the industry, actual liquidity centers. And when I talk to Fanatics and they want to know my opinion is we need more buyers. We need more people with faith in the industry that don't just have that faith and that passion, but can turn those things around and get things from somebody that's liquidating to someone that's collecting. And
hey, Rob, go in. You like the Wayback Machine. Go in the Wayback Machine with me for a second, right? You've owned the store since '89, right? So just we don't have to go back that far. Let's go back to the mid teens here. Let's go back to 2015.
Sure.
Can you hear me, Andrew? You hear me all right? So 2015, 2016. I mean 2013. You could pick a year in there where we would have the same conversation. Fanatics wasn't on the roadmap, right? Obviously, that's a new phenomenon, right? But back in 2015, 16. Andrew started off with a couple premises. It's harder to sell cards now. Now you might say no. Maybe it's not harder for you to sell cards right now. You're all over eBay. You're all over every place you name it. You're selling cards. You're just not selling cards that were purchased in the last 2 years for a lot of money, trying to sell them to the same people who are trying to buy them from you and sell them next week for more money. But right. Stick with me here on the Wayback Machine. If we go back to 2015, 2016, 2017, whenever it is, and we were able to take a snapshot of how many participants are in the hobby now, wouldn't it be fair to say back then you'd be salivating over the amount of people that are in the hobby now versus were in 2015, 16? Because of all the people who came in during COVID, all the people who came in because there was nothing else to do, nostalgia driven, you name it. There's so many more people, from content makers to buyers to you name it. Just the hobby has exploded. Would that be fair to say? Yeah. I mean, if I were a business in 2015, 16, 17 in the hobby, and I were able to just take a quick glimpse at what the hobby looks like today in 2022, even on the downward spin of our charts and the whole deal, today looks a lot rosier from a demand, from a participant perspective than it did in 2015, 16. I asked this for a reason, very specific reason. You were here. Right? You actually were there in 2015, 16, and 17. So you have that wide lens that I like to talk about in theory on our show. You have it in practice, right? And I think if I'm going to spin it a little bit, I think it's great that Fanatics can come in and expand the user base. But we were able to have a significant expansion of the user base without Fanatics. Right? For whatever reason, right? It was COVID. It was, you name it. It was just the boom. It was nostalgia. It was all those things combined, the perfect storm. I think the more important thing right now would be trying to retain some of those people or just letting them go and having a new batch come in. So, I mean, it's funny. My take on it, and maybe I'm just an idiot here, is I'm not looking for Fanatics to come in and save us and generate these stuff, because what I've seen over the last 2 years is it's not a big company with big wallets that is going to make this happen. It usually is some sort of I don't want to call it organic because it was, COVID and the whole 9 yards, but it usually is just the hobby itself becomes interesting, right? Have you seen that happen over time? Not just because of an influx of Fanatics coming in, but just a draft class, something else that draws people over to the hobby that might be a real organic thing that we should.
A question in many parts. A cage lawyer.
That's what I do. Well, because dude, I waited 8 minutes for you to ask him the same question that Dr. James Beckett has asked him literally 13 times. He's been on Beckett's podcast, and first 8 minutes got nothing. So I'm going to ask a different question, my type of question.
Yeah,
a cage lawyer.
That was a plural.
Plural, exactly.
I think if you go back 10 to 15 years, there were actual concerns that we were going to age out. where it was the average consumer was 45 years old and was white and was male.
Yep.
We were afraid that if a kid had a choice between a $50 box of tops and a video game, that 98% of the time they were going to get the video game. And there was real concerns there. And then, things started to change. It wasn't just COVID. We were on an upward slope, I believe, well before COVID. We were starting to see the demographics start to shift. We were starting to get more younger users in, and we certainly saw an influx of female users. And that maybe isn't talked about as the diversity of today's customer, where we didn't have that 2015, 2016, where we could have 4 or 5 African Americans in our store that didn't all walk in together. It's that diversity that we're seeing today that I think we started to drive in 2017, 18, 19 before COVID. And of course, COVID was the match that just lit everything. I like to tell people that 2020 was the best month in our history of the company up till that point, and we were closed for retail business. So that gives you an idea of what kind of kickstart that COVID had. But I believe there's already more people in place for that than people think. But yeah, going back to 2015, 16 to today, if you would have told us that we would have a 10x uptick in users, because we do, even with all that's going on. And to be honest with you, as far as the roller coaster of the market, there's still as many cards coming through as many folks coming through our store than we've had at any point of this run up. It's just the business is different now. People are playing in the same space. It's just at some different levels. And, as far as I'm trying to remember all of your questions.
No, I mean, so that's good. We can hit on it, but I mean, I think really the last part, and I want to get back to where they're playing the different space and how you still have the same foot traffic with the same amount of people, but maybe where they were playing in the $1,000 realm, they're now back down into the $50 to $250 realm. We'll get to that in 2 seconds, but I guess where I'm going, what you said is exactly right. We still right now, even with the doom and gloom, the poll over the atmosphere and the charts, if you want to just look at the 2022 charts, all down, we are 10x in the space. Not just in the card values, but in the participants, in what makes this thing go from where we were in 2015. Is it fair? I guess the conclusion of my plural sentence question is it fair to just hang all our hopes on Fanatics to say we need another 10x in the next 5 years also? Because we've already seen a 10x.
You know what? That's their plan, is for a 10x. I'm not sure if that is possible without organic growth within the industry. Don't take this the wrong way, but we don't need more podcasts. We don't need more influencers. We don't need more breakers. We don't need, well, we do need more pretty girls that are in the space. But what I'm trying to say here is that we need more quality shops. We need Fanatics to get behind shops that aren't just breaking fronts. I believe.
Rob, let's lean into that. So breakers versus hobby shops, right?
Well, I don't have popular opinions sometimes on all these things, but
those are the ones we like to hear.
It's correct, and everybody that knows me, there's no filter in my opinions, and I think that's why I've gotten to the space I have in this industry well before, and I can talk about that too. But it's if I disappointed 85% of my customers every single time that I had an interaction with them, I'd be out of business.
Does that sound familiar, Andrew?
It does. It does. Because I come from the small business as well, and we don't market. Our marketing is word of mouth. We do right by one customer tells two tell four times tell 8. And that's the only way I've ever known to do business. We've never raised funding. It's not a model that I've even understood. And that's why I gravitated towards Rob at National. I wanted to have that combo.
Well, I appreciate that. And I get it. It's fun. But at the end of the day, the ROI, the fun doesn't outweigh the ROI. And in this market especially, and I'm not involved in it at all. I've never broken anything. It just doesn't appeal to me the way the fractionalization is in the industry. And I consider it low-hanging fruit. I believe that the easier something to do is, more people are doing it and it dilutes itself. I like the high-hanging fruit, and I've always tried to be at the top of the tree, because the top of the tree is the best experience. And, we need more places. We need more education that there is collecting. You walk into a lot of establishments and there's only a couple ways to interact with those companies. They don't know that they can PC this easily. They can't put their hands on cards that are in a system where they can enjoy them. So they kind of go to where people are pushing them. And I think the industry has pushed them in that direction, maybe without knowing there's other ways to partake. And when they come in here, they know we don't break. If they ask, why don't you break? I'm like, why don't they run full service card shops? Why don't they become professional retailers instead of just someone with an iPhone yelling into it because 15% of the time something positive happens? And we have a sign in the business that says the happiest place in the hobby in Disneyland font. And we truly believe that. Close to 100% of the people walk out of here feeling whole, feeling that I didn't have to ding my credit card. They were willing to take on these cards that I didn't want, providing me with liquidity that now I can put back into the industry. And, Burbank Card Show, we'll get to that. Actually, let's skip that for now. But I do believe that we need to have stores where you don't have to walk in and ding your credit card. We need to have stores that provide an experience where literally it's the wife ain't going to freak out that you just spent another $800
right
on the hobby and didn't get what you wanted. I believe that people are gravitating more away from breaking. And if they're going to remain in this business, they're going to remain in it from more of a hobbyist perspective. And I embrace that. And I think we just need more stores that can provide experiences that are true experiences, that are destination stores, and they're going to drive past a lot of other stores that are one-dimensional in how they run their businesses.
So I have a question, Cage. Anything from you?
No, I mean, listen, he's answered all of it. I love it. I mean, listen, if we had unlimited amount of time, I'd love to.
Well, we can go.
Rob's.
I'm enjoying myself.
There are a lot of breakers out there who could use some advice from someone like Rob, who's been doing this for a while and obviously has existed on the top of the tree for a while. And maybe some of those breakers don't want to vanish. Maybe they don't just want to be low-hanging fruit. Maybe they also see the writing on the wall. What would his recommendation to some of those people listening be? How do you start moving up that tree? Do you completely get rid of the breaking side? Do you work in some additional value to the breaking? I mean, what would your suggestion be to some of those folks so that they don't just disappear?
Well, I mean, a lot of days are numbered. Again, we have Fanatics with a direct-to-consumer model that isn't going to be supplying these folks. And if they do supply these folks, it's going to be at margins dictated by Fanatics. And I've made it clear. I'm like, if you're going to sit there and give product to a shop where it's max 30 points and you're kicked out, you should be giving stuff to whatever breakers you're supporting where they break it, there's only 30 points to be had as well. I want to make sure that that's a level playing field, and I'm not sure that's been addressed yet. I come from
30 points real quick, Rob. Can you clarify 30 points for me?
The discussions that I've had with Fanatics are about, it's not going to be the Wild West anymore. It's going to be a real business. And if we're going to allow you to have product, if we're going to supply you, it's going to be at set margins. And these are going to be set margins that are dictated by Fanatics. And if you don't play the game correctly, you will be cut. And I embrace it. Yep. I don't want the Wild West, because who loses in the Wild West? The customer.
Sort of like the PSA, like qualified submitters, right? If you don't follow our rules, you're out.
I've been pitching for the last 18 months that we need authorized shops. We need stores that represent the brand of Fanatics in the best possible way. Again, when there's 4X product coming out, that product is built to be $200. It's not built to be $800. And who loses in the Wild West? It's
consumer.
And we can't keep cycling through waves of customers where they've had these negative experiences. They've had grading at $150 tacked on to what they paid for a card, but then that grade isn't the same as it was maybe at the beginning of the pandemic. And we've had this silent sucking sound of money just evaporating in the industry.
And who gets blamed, by the way? That's the best part. So Fanatics, it's a great lesson.
We did an episode of who got blamed yesterday.
And forget about that. That's very different. And don't go, I forgot my tinfoil downstairs. I don't want to pick a hat and hold it. No, but what Rob is saying, and I want our guys to listen to it, it's very important, and Fanatics should listen to it also. And I hope they have you on some sort of an advisory board. And by the way, invite me. So here's the fun thing, Rob. What Rob is saying is, let's use Upper Deck's recent metal product. Or let's use Prism's recent WWE Prism releases, right? Or the UFC ones, or whatever it is, right? Like those are the WWE one and the metal one is a great example, right? Those are released at a price to stores. Let's just say $200 a box, because that's about what it was. I know that because my LCS, who I've been going to for decades, only charged me $400 for a box, and I know he made money on it, right? But I remember the day of release. There was one shop that was breaking it at like $850 a box, and all the other breakers were flipping out on him. Right. It's $1,200. It's $1,250. Why are you breaking it at $8? All right, he'll be sold out soon, and then we can charge the $1,250 for it. We could sell $1,250. Okay, but you know what happens is after a week, now the price comes down, and those boxes are like $300, maybe even less. Oh, yeah. And everybody who broke these and opened them at $1,000, $1,200 and got their Michael Jordan cut above or these PMG Fugazi things that are in there, right? They're like, well, my card's only worth $12. I paid $1,200 for this box. Damn Upper Deck, they're screwing me over. How could Upper Deck have this product out there that's $1,200? It had nothing to do with Upper Deck. Right. Upper Deck had no oversight over that entire process where this basically cartel of people who were getting the Upper Deck product were able to basically fix a $200 product and turn it into a $1,250 product on release day. That's the kind of shit that Rob is talking about that needs to be avoided, because who gets screwed? The idiots like me who opened it. But lucky for me, my LCS didn't kill me on the price.
Well, I think the first time it came on my radar in a big kind of way was 2021 Prism basketball hobby. If you remember, 18-19 organically grew in value. Retail boxes were $140, $150, and over time it got to $220. And it was based on the content, and it was based on the demand that drove that price up. It wasn't artificially set at a level to start with. Right. And it's a huge
Luka, Trey, SGA, Michael Porter Jr., that class.
Yeah, the green box, the green retail box he's talking about, the 18-19. I bought one for $100 at the Hofstra show. $100. And because you got one Luka base out of it, graded it, and you got your money back. I mean, that was the thing. He's talking about what you can get in it was what the reason for driving it.
Organically grew in value. It wasn't artificially manipulated to a level that they think in a year it's going to get to that. Even when you look at 1920 Zion boxes and where they started out at like $400 hobby, which was basically 3 times cost, it was still expensive out of the chute, but it took a while to organically get to the numbers that it did. 2020-21 comes along, and the rookies hadn't played one game, and now it's a $2,400 hobby box out the chute. And a lot of people bought those boxes at those levels because we were replacing at $2,100 the day it came out. We had to be at $2,400. So people are breaking those boxes and grading these cards and waiting a long time to get them back. And when they get them back, all of a sudden, we're paying $6 on them to sell them for $10 because it was like this perfect storm of things that can hurt a consumer. And we need to have learned from that and not screw over the next wave that's coming in. It was supplies. We're selling top loaders for $10 a pack. It was just at every level, things were ridiculous. And we can't do that again. And there's no finger pointing to blame, but I think there was just a cartel that got all the product and could manipulate the product without any regards to what's in the product. And not only was it $1,200, but then you add your VIG for the breaker, and it becomes $1,350, $1,400 that's now being fractionalized. And we see it all the time, and the used lottery tickets, I call them, and here they come. Here's this wave coming to Burbank, and it's just like now all of a sudden we're the face of disappointed through no fault of our own that people made some horrible decisions based on people that artificially manipulated things.
And you lose the consumer, you lose the customer. I mean,
Yeah.
a great example, the wrestling one, Andrew, that I gave is David Peck, the first guest we ever had on the show, who's a classic wrestling collector, never bought any kind of modern. But when wrestling was brought out for Prism, the normal collectors, the new breed of collector was all about that Prism wrestling. It's going to be great. It's going to be, and he was following it. And you had these old time, I'm going to call them wrestling collectors out there who were watching this. And the narrative on it now is, holy cow, like, look at how it crashed. Like, anybody who was buying these, these Hulk Hogan cards for $10,000 on release day, you can get it now for $500. The boxes are 5% of what they cost on like release week. It's crazy to see what happens. And it turns people off. People who are already collectors are even turned off to the new way of doing it, right? Let alone bring a new person in.
May I ask maybe a challenging question? But so, like, matter is neither created nor lost. It's just transferred, right? We know that, like a law of physics. Where did the money go? So you said that there are 10x the amount of people from 2017 to now.
Sure.
But my question is two-part. 90% of those people, do you think they have more money in their pocket now or less than they did when they first got into the hobby? And the second is, if not, where did that money go?
Wow. Okay.
There you go. You said you wanted to be honest.
Well, that's a tricky one. I think it depends on when they came in 2020 and they were able to do their dealings. It was an up market and they walked away for a little bit. Yeah, they're way ahead of the game. But for a lot of folks, and I think that's maybe 20%. And I think those were the people that actually had access to product, were able to 4X it, 10X it. They're obviously were in a pretty good space. Even if they reinvested and they lost some money, I think they're still in a good space. But it was the people that came afterwards that didn't have access to direct product, that were involved in all the manipulation, that WWE Prism. Again, it should have been $250 on people's shelves. And if the boxes, if the demand was there, if the singles were selling well, yeah, let it go to 800, let it go to 1200 based on supply and demand. But supply and demand on release day is a misnomer because it's content as well. What's in the product? I mean, silver Hulk Hogan's going for $80 that are just base parallels basically. And I'm looking at this. I'm seeing it coming back, and Ryan puts a Post-it note on everything he buys, and I'm like, and what I always use the term, in what world? I mean, that's kind of like this term I use for things that come through, and I'm like, someone that knows how many of these things are made. Somebody knows the relative scarcity of these, 97, 98 basketball cards that weren't rare back then, that there's a lot of them out there. And there was a lot of them at PSA in 20 and 21 in this backlog that nobody knew what was in the backlog. So I'm thinking to myself, there's this tsunami that's going to be coming back to the industry of cards, and pops are going to get jolted so quickly. Is there enough people to consume this and maintain the level of pricing? And obviously we found out that there wasn't. There was just so many common cards and Dirk Nowitzki's Topps papers at $1,000. I'm like, dude, that's the most generic card in the world. And it just made no sense. So I think your answer is, I think 20% of the people did okay. I think 80% of the people are upside down. And
my theory, and Cage, I'd love to hear your thoughts, is you mentioned you've had this shop since 1989. You've gone through cycles. Cage has an amazing statement. When it's good, everyone thinks it's going to keep going good. And when it's bad, everyone thinks it's going to keep going bad. And it's never too good. It's never too bad. But once you're gone through cycles, you have to keep some money on the sideline. You have to prepare for a tough time. I think a lot of these businesses that just recently came in, they got hit with all this cash. And they're like, well, now it's going good. Let's go Instagram Live and hire an athlete and talk about football and pay him $20,000. And I could buy that condo over there for $600,000 because it's going good. And a lot of these new businesses got the money and they started spending it in irresponsible ways, and it left the hobby.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. And there's always going to be survivors of these things that are left to pick up the pieces. And I don't want to sound like all doom and gloom. I still think that there's a big wave coming. One of the things I don't think, there's two things that are going to happen in this hobby, and I believe maybe even three. Well, first one, we still don't have a streaming show on a major streaming platform. How that happens is absolutely beyond me, with all the celebrity that's in this industry. How
Cage isn't a celebrity. I would say he's maybe B-list going on A, but I wouldn't say celebrity.
Well, what I'm saying is 16 months ago, we should have had something on a streaming series. We've been involved in 3 or 4 major productions that are in post-production. I talked to the guys at Golden. It's in post-production. And it's been like, you don't sit in post-production for 6 months. And most of the content that was shot at a totally different time, so that it's not timely and fresh when it hits right now.
I was involved in something at the Chicago National. There was some documentary being made. I sat down, I talked, I gave great answers. They loved it. I went outside, smoked a cigar on camera, and talked about. But I have no idea who the hell I was talking to.
Yeah,
I don't know where that. I have no clue what video is. I'm gonna find myself on Amazon Prime one day, maybe. I have no idea. Clueless, no clue, Rob. I mean, maybe the reason for it though is
I've got 2 or 3 guys that we worked with that are very close. I've seen sizzle reels. It's the stuff was really good that we shot. We were really, really happy with it, and we played a prominent role in every doc that was out there. I'm going to give you one tidbit though. There was this steaming pile of shit, in my opinion. I thought it was awful, but it was called Jack of All Trades, and it came out, I'm going to say maybe 2 years ago, but it was shot like 7 years ago. And we were the only shop that was featured in it. And I'm like, oh my God. So it got on, I think, DirecTV first. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm in this. I have to watch it. And I wasted $4.90 of my time. I didn't think it was good at all. But with that being said, it was #1 on Netflix for 6 days ahead of Avengers Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
It's because there is so much nostalgia involved. There's so much memories, which is exactly what we sell in this business. And that was awful. Imagine when we get a streaming series or a streaming documentary. Almost any business that has had a streaming platform for their wares has gone up astronomically because people love watching transactional television. And I think that's one of the things that we do with our card shop series is try to have transactional information. I think once that hits, we have another wave coming. People are going to see the hobby. They're going to see the industry. They're going to see the passion, the excitement. So that's one thing. Again, I do believe that Fanatics is going to turn sports fans into sports card collectors. People think it's a bad thing that we're going to have things at checkout at Wawa. I didn't even know what Wawa was until I read it. It's not a Cali thing. I want packs at 7-Eleven. I want $2 packs there because we're jaded to think that someone's going to find our hobby industry at a card shop or on a break. They're going to find us at Walmart, at Target, at 7-Eleven.
Right.
And then it's going to come into our ecosystem. So to me, it's smart to have things in as many different spaces as possible. Get the tentacles out there. I think that's huge. And again, I think better shops. I think that I come from, I was going to say from an education standpoint, I've done seminars where I worked for Upper Deck. It was called Hobby 2000. Traveled the country, did 6-hour seminars where people were so excited, they went back to their shops afterwards at 6 o'clock at night to sit there and start implementing things. I motivate people. I am transparent. This is exactly what I do. Fujitsu 6130 scanning machines. Nobody even knew they existed in the business. Not only did I buy 9 of them, I told people all about it. I ran Beckett Business Solutions, where we literally had a database with a 2 million card image library with insertion fees that were 20% of what they normally were. Just blew things up. Of course, it was Beckett at the time, and they screwed it all up. But I've done columns for Beckett, columns for SCD, card trade. And one of the things I really pitched to Fanatics was to have educational content when we do the Burbank Card Show, and it's in Southern California. Let's put together an educational platform where we get the best of the best in the business and show that transparency. How do we make you a better breaker? How do we make you a better card shop? How do you make maybe a better seller at a card show? How do you utilize space? How do you buy things, organize things, build infrastructure so you can pull cards efficiently? What are the technologies out there? To me, and I got some really positive feedback on that, we can get a one-stop shop. We bring it to the Burbank Card Show, which I think is going to have everybody there. We have breakout rooms. Wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't I want to sit in on something where that dude's been incredibly successful in that space and he wants to share it? Again, everybody's keeping shit to themselves. I've been sharing it. If more people share, there's better education. We can build a curriculum where there's no college course for becoming a card shop owner. It's hit or miss, trial, error, fail, gone.
You know what I love?
What's that?
Replay the last minute of this, talking about a curriculum, talking about education, sitting in rooms, sitting in seminars, lecturing people, to the Rob Veras that dropped out of college.
And you know what? I did drop out of college. I
know you did. I research when I do these things. I don't just come in here and be on the B list. This is why Andrew's on the D list all the time.
Yeah.
So anyway, listen, Rob, my question for you, and here's the deal, right? It's very easy. What I want people to take away from this is you just saw this huge upcycle. And I know you were in the 20% that made money. I know you were, right? And part of it is your transparency. Part of it is the fact that you do things the right way. But a big part of it is because you were here before this cycle. Because previously you knew that this wave was coming. And here you are again in a time where the wave has crested and is coming down, saying, guys, there's another one coming and it's going to be even bigger. And here's a couple of things that are going to happen. And Andrew's question about, hey, who are the people who made the money? I say it all the time. The people who have made the money are the ones who have been through one of these and stayed and realize it doesn't just go like this and then all the way back down and it's done. And I got to leave and go buy Beanie Babies. I got to leave and go deal with crypto or whatever the hell else we're doing, right?
All that in confidence.
Well, so yeah, but he's bringing Tamagotchis back. I'm letting it out of the bag. That's what he's doing. But so what Rob is saying here, a lot of great stuff. But the most important thing for the folks who are listening to this to take is, when you've been through these cycles, right, you realize that guess what? This isn't the end, right? There'll be another beginning, right? It doesn't end. It just cycles. And if Fanatics does it the right way, and if a streaming platform comes, and if people realize, and I'm going to say something, Rob, and I want to get your take on this. If people realize that we in the hobby should stop fighting over one slice of the pie, and instead all work on realizing it is a big damn pie that we can all share, that's a better thing for everybody.
Right. No, I totally agree. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention one other thing that part of our success is that I got a 27-year-old in the office right next door, and a succession plan. And I think this is another thing that's never really spoke on in the industry.
California.
What happens if I'm in my mid 50s now? What happens if something happens to me and the wife is selling everything off for parts? I don't think a lot of companies have something in place where your legacy and your brand goes forward. And I wouldn't trade anybody in the industry for Ryan. I say that not just because I'm his dad. I'm like, he's the very best at what he does. And he's kind of the epicenter of what happens here. And kind of taking that knowledge and passing it down. And that's kind of where I went with the education. He's brilliant. But a lot of that is because he's intake so much of, I'm in a meeting with eBay and he's with me. He didn't say a whole lot, but he absorbed in every major meeting that we've had traveling in the last 7-8 years. He's been in, and he's been a sponge for that. And I think that's where it comes to education and that's critical because people didn't experience it. They didn't experience the recession and how things change. We've never let someone go because of economic woes. You've been let go because you suck, or I caught you stealing, or things of that nature. But we just double down and work harder. And we've never slowed our roll on buying. People are like, do you buy? I'm like, I got a 40 million card warehouse and 41 showcases and run reels 10 times a day with the stuff we bought yesterday. Of course I buy. And it's a confidence thing. And if there was more people that were confident and weren't just looking to pay less than the last eBay comp, which is a zero-sum game, it's just, we're going to end up at zero. We need professional retailers, not dealers, but professional retailers out there that know how to market to the wider audience, that can consume all these cards, repackage them in a way that they can get over the latest comp. They can retail cards, not just flip or just, but actually put them in forever homes, which is another term I've been using lately. because these cards are just flipping around. And if no one's willing to pay higher than the last one sold for, it's just ridiculous. Because I'm always like, someone's in my store and they're looking at a card and it's priced at $80. And the cheapest one for sale on eBay is $90. And I guarantee no one locally has it for less than $100. But that card sold yesterday for $72. But the cheapest one for sale is still $90. And they want to pay $70 to $72 for it. And that's because two bidders took it to that. Now one bidder comes out of the equation and no one's willing to pay more than the latest comp. And now it's 68, 64. It's just stupid. It's
unsustainable.
What's that?
It's unsustainable. So you see me, I'm jumping to the screen. This was the last question I had for you. So, and by the way, we talk about experience tax and going to shows and learning. We talked about that 2 days ago when we did our recap video from Dallas.
Before you ask the question, Ryan, you got to listen to that. Your dad just did you a great service. Said he wouldn't trade you for anything.
Ryan's a savage, dude.
I mean, you wouldn't say that. There are times you wouldn't trade him for anything. There were times during this year that I would trade Andrew for a box of Card Saver ones.
Amazing. Shut up now. Dallas Card Show. I went to Chantilly and then Dallas. Chantilly's like an autograph show. Dallas is a show that popped up maybe a year ago or something. I got the impression, this is my words, tell me what you think. Chantilly felt like a forever home show. It was dealers that were truly collectors there. Like I sold cards. It was like, I'm buying this for my dad. He loves Steph Curry. I'm buying this for my son. He loves this. Dallas felt like, hey, what card you got there? Okay, I'll get, let me see last comp. I'll pay you 60% of the comps.
Right.
Dallas felt to me like a Costco wholesale show versus Chantilly to me felt like a collector show. And did you see that as well? And the two-part question is, how do you stimulate buying at Burbank, at your Burbank show? How do you bring in collectors and flippers and investors?
That's a good question. I've never been to Chantilly, but I think some of those East Coast shows that have been around for decades have a dealer base that were here well before COVID and have built up inventories based on how they sold cards in 15, 16, 10 for that matter. And
I talked to a guy who's been dealing since the 50s, by the way, at the Chantilly show.
And they've got their customers. They cater to collectors. I do believe that Dallas is more of a transactional show. More guys that have only been in it since 2020. And, they have narrow skill sets, to be honest. If they can't comp something, they don't know what to do with it. These guys have lived these cards over and over and over again for decades. They know what they are by eyesight. They know that this card from 1996, Pinnacle Aficionado, was tough. It was one every 72 packs. They can look at it. They know it cold because they've seen that card over decades. And vintage, the same thing. They know the scarcities, and they know these are never centered. These kids, unless it's graded and has a comp, and they can just easily figure it out. And that's another problem that we have. And a Chantilly show, that's how it's different that way. And we're hoping with the Burbank show that we can add value. I never thought I'd be in the game
business.
Card shows. I mean, literally, you would have told me 18 months ago, I would have said, get your head checked. I have no interest, zero, zilch, none. But what occurred to me was all the money that we're talking about, money evaporating from the industry. Southern California is the best market in the country.
Great.
And stop, no question about it. Everybody knows it.
Great.
But you need to get on a plane and get a hotel to go to a major show. And Dallas pops up, and it costs $800 to get your feet on the floor in Dallas from LA. That money goes to the airlines and the hotels. To Atlantic City, you got to take your life in your own hands, pray you've got internet service, and drop closer to $1,500 to get on the floor in Atlantic City. And I thought to myself, you know what? There's some smaller shows in Southern California and some really good guys. So the origin of Burbank was this guy named Jay. He runs the Brea show and the Westminster show. And I've never been to him, but I've heard good things. And so he's a customer of mine. And I'm like, I'm thinking about doing a small card show. And I mean small, just something to get my feet wet, give something to my customers and all that. And he's like, you want to do a show with me? And I'm like, yeah, you run a good show. You seem like a good dude. And all of a sudden he's looking at spaces the next day. And he's like, Rob, there's the Marriott Convention Center. I'm like, no, no, no. I wasn't looking for something like that. It's a huge facility. It's expensive. It's my first show. You don't start with a Marriott Convention Center for your first show. Well, we did it. And I guess we underestimated the brand because it was bonkers. And the place was packed. The line was around the building and around other parts of the parking lot. And we just hadn't seen lines for a card show in a very long time.
And now the second show's at the Staples Center, fellas.
Yeah, no, it's actually at the Coliseum. And so we're looking for facilities, and it took 8 months to get that Marriott slot. And little did I know, Mike Fruitman's Denver show, who's a dear friend of mine, was going the same weekend, and the East Coast National was going the same weekend. And I'm like, oh God, all these competing shows, are people going to show up? And, you know, are we going to sell out? And we had a wait list for that thing, and the demand was crazy. And so people like, how are you going to top it? And the Marriott wants us back because we sold all these rooms and all this food and drink. And I'm like, we can't go there. I can't do that to my customers, and I can't do it to the dealers that really want to partake, but I don't have room. And so we ended up with the Ontario Convention Center, which I never thought I'd be doing anything in Ontario. And people are like, Canada? Because they don't even know Ontario even exists in California. And I went and saw the facility and I fell in love. I'm like, this place is gorgeous. It's amazing. It's got a 70,000 square foot main hall. And we were able to have breakout rooms, 3,000 foot, 1,000 foot. And I'm like, this is awesome because it's 5 minutes from an international airport. There's hotels all around it. And now we can, you know, double the amount of dealers, but more importantly, bring in a huge corporate presence that the only way I want them to come in is if they have a value add. What are you doing to add value? And so all of our dealers want to come back. And so the legacy dealers that took a chance on the first one are getting first crack at it. They're being reached out to right now, and they have the opportunity to get an extra table if they want. And they want. So all of a sudden, these tables are going like that. And then we were able to announce that we got Beckett grading on site with machines. And I'm like, the only place they do that is the National. And they came to our show, and the submission levels that they had were ridiculous. And they had a very minuscule presence there. They took all their presence to the East Coast National, but our submissions dwarf that. And so I come at them, I'm like, and my new term is, I'd be very disappointed if, and it seems to be working. And so that's how I presented it to Jeremy, and they came back. We're bringing the machines. They haven't had the machines in Southern California since 2006. Wow. Now, last time there was a National in Southern California. We know that next 3 years, there's no National in Southern California because they need a tremendous amount of space, and they need to go to LA or Anaheim that are ridiculously expensive. And we know they pay far, far less to be where they're at. And we also know that their dealers do the voting as to where it's going to be. And we know most of those dealers are on the East Coast, and they've been doing it for decades, and they don't want to come west. So I think we've got a runway. I think we have other major sponsors that we're going to be having big announcements with. But I actually didn't even figure out that it was Super Bowl weekend when we booked it. They did not have any slots. They actually pushed someone out of our weekend.
Rob, give people the dates real quick so that just so they know.
It's February 9th through 12th. It's Super Bowl weekend. Thursday's preview night. It goes through Sunday. And people are like, Super Bowl weekend. And I'm like, I get it. Maybe you've got other plans. But maybe you want to be at the biggest event in the business where we're throwing parties.
Maybe we could have a cigar night together, a cigar viewing night, a cigar Super Bowl night.
You know what? I think Luka Nation can do a sponsorship where literally we can give them the space for, you know, cigar night with the guys. We have different sponsors that want to do different things. When we can celebrate the biggest weekend in sports, you're with your friends. You're coming in. You're all in one place. I think it's
own the cards. You could do trades right there on the spot. You own the cards of Patrick Mahomes, who's obviously going to win. And
yeah. Obviously, yeah. But no, to me, it's gotten to be a better and better idea. And people are coming around to the fact this is going to be a super show. It's going to be, everybody wants tables. Everyone we're billing it as just Burbank experience on steroids, and that's kind of the messaging we're getting across. And I'm stoked that it's
Rob is buzzing. He's having fun. You're having fun, Rob. Be honest.
I'm 56 years old, and if you know my personality and you see my videos, if you've ever walked in my shop, and I'm walking around, there's 22 people here at 11:15 yesterday. Literally, there's 22 people in the store, and I'm like, dude, doesn't anybody work around here? And they're gonna be there for hours. Nobody comes in for 15 minutes in this place. I mean,
entrepreneurs. Cage, any final questions? I have one question.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, listen, you could ask me a final question. I was just gonna make a joke about how many packages I've lost to Ontario. I mean, really, because I've been on eBay for a long time, and it's Ontario, CA. The post office that I've had at least 5 sent to Canada, Andrew. No bullshit. It's crazy. It really is. It's Ontario. Come on, Ontario, CA looks like Canada. Anyway, no, I mean,
confusing.
I love the question of, are you having fun with this? Clearly you are. And it is one of the things that we try to bring forward with the show and, in what we do also. I mean, for most people, this isn't their business, right? For most people, and for the people who it is their business, the people whose money you want, it's not going to be their business either, right? I mean, you don't want to just be dealing with dealers, because that is the zero-sum game we talked about. You want to have more people come in. You want more sports fans come in. You want to find forever homes, but forever homes for cards are usually in the homes of lawyers and dentists and kids and you name it, right? So we need fun in the hobby. And, I mean, I know it's harder to have fun when, quote unquote, prices are going down. But chatting with you about like how exciting the show is going to be and all the events that are going to be there, and the fact that that next wave is coming. I love the fun. I love the vibe. We're real thankful to have you on.
The hobby will be a lot more fun when it reaches normalcy, and when you're not gambling on a $1,500 box of Prism Wrestling and all of that. When we get the gambling aspect lowered, I think all of a sudden more people can partake in the game. Now we can afford that hobby box. Now, it's not artificially jacked up 4x. And I think that's going to make the hobby more fun. And I think it's going to organically grow the hobby again. It needs to be more organic and not manipulated. And that's something I push for when I talk to Fanatics, when I talk to Beckett, when I talk to industry leaders that come through and I give them the tour, and you see all this stuff on YouTube. The F word in this place is fun. And, that's why people can spend hours in a card shop. And they do that because they have like-minded people in the store. They're making friends, they're sharing IGs, and it just goes from there. And that's why I push. We need better shops that can keep people in there for hours, engaged. And $50 is their budget. You need to give them as much value for $50 as possible. Not just a bloated blaster that's got $10 worth of content in it, but that $50 where they walk out feeling satisfied, that they've either made a forever home out of it, or they feel that if they open it, there's a better chance of ROI. Because when you bloat products artificially, and when the distributors are retailers and things are almost criminal in nature as to what's going on, it sucks the fun right out. So I am a fan of where this hobby has landed, and I think we can organically take it to amazing places without. And cutting distributors is the first step in this. I said it. And that's the first step to bringing fun back.
Rob, quick question. We wanted to become the hobby radio station. Okay. So we hit live, we record Cage and I, we've done this 850 days in a row.
Congrats.
What advice would you have for us?
He doesn't want any more podcasts, or content to him is what's in a pack. So he wants us to quit.
No, I want quality. I don't want more low-hanging fruit, because there's just too much of that. You do something 850 times in a row, and now that I'm involved in this, it was like Ryan from Card Collector 2 was in here. And people come through, their head explodes, all this other stuff. You're cool, you do great things. But he was asking the questions. He was more interested in the infrastructure. He was more in the why. Why do you do things this way? How do you get things to look like this? What's the process? What's the steps? And that kid's going to be successful because he asked the right questions. And I think you guys ask the right questions. And I get interviewed. People come in here, they want to talk things, but they don't have the expertise to ask the questions that can grow their business. And I'm very impressed with the two of you. And I'm hoping we could do this again in the future. Maybe in 6 months, we can have maybe after the Burbank show, we can have a recap. Where are we in February as opposed to where we are in November? And you know what? We're going to be in a much better space. That I guarantee. Write it down, book it. And if you don't believe it, then you don't believe in the industry.
Luka Nation, you fly into LA, stop by Burbank. Burbank Cards on Instagram. The Card Father. I knew this would exceed expectations. Enjoy. Cage, I appreciate you as always. Rob, thank you so much for spending the morning with us.
When are you guys coming to Cali where we can sit down, have a beer, and talk hobby?
I'm going to be at the Burbank show for sure.
Well, damn it. Well, I don't smoke cigars, but I certainly drink Coors Light. So we can definitely get together and have some fun, guys.
So thank you all for listening to another episode of Lucas, Tigers, and Bronzo My. I wanted to tell you about a new service that we have starting as of today, and I'm really, really excited to bring it to you guys. So as a part of our partnership with SGC, we got 50 free submissions every single month, and many of you have taken advantage of that. And it's amazing that we could have the opportunity to 650 episodes, 675 episodes in, to go ahead and give back to our community. As people were sending those cards in, they asked, can we send 5, 10, 20 more cards to you guys? We'll pay for it, but we wanted them graded with SGC. You guys know SGC is turning cards around in 13 to 14 business days, have incredible customer service, and their secondary market values are going up day after day after day. And that's exciting for the hobby and exciting for the grading landscape. So we didn't want to just rush into it. We wanted to do it right. And what we did was I relocated here to Boca Raton, Florida. I opened up a P.O. box maybe 5 minutes away from SGC, and I will be hand delivering and hand picking up the cards. So you don't have to worry about anyone else touching your cards. It will be me, and I will update you every step of the way. So here's how it's going to work. I'm going to personally pick up the cards from a P.O. box, prep them, new card saver, new penny sleeve, and deliver them to SGC every single Tuesday. Why Tuesday? Well, it lets the stragglers over the weekend come back through on Monday and gives me a day to prep, and it basically gives SGC the entire week to work on grading those cards. Once your cards pop, only then at the end of the process will you be paying for the service. It's $25 per card, simple as that, and the turnaround times have never been faster. We're hearing right now 13, 14, less than 20 business days. So there it is. 9170 Glades Road, number 135 is the P.O. Box in Boca Raton, Florida, 33434. 9170 Glades Road, number 135, Boca Raton, Florida, 33434. Of course, you could shoot me an email or shoot me a text anytime, and I'm always available. Many of you already have my email. It's iamandrewgoldberg@gmail.com. or my cell phone number, 215-519-9154. Reach out with any questions. I could walk you through the process. I've hopped on the call with quite a few of you, and I'm happy to do that. Love you, Luka Nation.